How good is Oleksandr Usyk? Is he just the best of this era, or does his name belong alongside the all-time greats? Could he have beaten legends like Muhammad Ali, or Lennox Lewis, or Larry Holmes in their prime? It's a bold conversation, but one that's gaining traction. As Usyk continues to build a legacy few can match. We're diving into what makes Usyk such a unique and dominant force. His footwork, ring IQ, and ability to neutralize power punches. We'll also break down his defining performances, including 2 tactical masterclasses against Anthony Joshua and his historic win over Tyson Fury to become undisputed heavyweight champion. Is Usyk simply outclassing a weak era, or would his skill set transcend generations? Join us as we compare styles, eras, and legacies, because when it comes to Oleksandr Usyk, the question isn't just how good is he? It might be how great.
How good is Oleksandr Usyk? Is he better than Ali? Who would beat Oleksandr Usyk? Is he the best of all time? I wanted to have a little conversation about how good Usyk is, and I wanted to do that by actually looking at some of his fights. And the first fight to make reference to is the Anthony Joshua fight. Now, Anthony Joshua, I feel, just doesn't get enough credit. Anthony Joshua, I feel, doesn't get enough credit. There's a lot of criticism about him, but he's immensely successful, and he was a 2-time heavyweight champion. And at his peak, he had phenomenal power, good speed, and he would be a handful for anyone. Now, when he fought Oleksandr Usyk, that was a very good fight, because that was like the beginning of his heavyweight reign, literally. So what's interesting, when I just briefly rewatched the fight, and I remember in round 3, there were some significant things. I got some notes with me that I'll refer to. And there was 3 things that stood out to me. One of them was the foot movement. And it wasn't just him moving to his right, which is typical of a southpaw. He was moving to his right, then he was moving to his left. And he was doing like a lot of feints. But also he was pushing out his right hand, which is like a feint, but it also obstructs your vision and is controlling like the left shoulder. So he's trying to control the jab. But at this point in round 3, he's doing that and he's moving in and out, which is making him a very hard target. But now he's starting to land the left, the straight left. And that's a problem for Anthony Joshua. If Usyk is landing the jab, negating your jab and landing the straight left, then that's a problem. And in round 3, I think he started landing the straight left and then he landed like a looping left. And this had Anthony Joshua in all types of problems. So that was round 3, and then I took some notes in round 7 where Usyk lands a straight left to the body. So now he's varying the attack. So if you're Anthony Joshua, you're thinking, okay, that straight left is coming. I've got to try and negate the jab, try and negate the straight left to the head. But as you're doing that, now it's coming to the body, and then you're hitting the body. That's an investment for the end of the fight, because the more you're getting hit to the body, the tireder you'll become, or you will become more tired, believe me. And again, he's using that right hand to obstruct the vision and also to feint, and his feints are multifarious. I repeat, his feints are multifarious. He's feinting with his hands, but he's also feinting with his feet and his body, and that's causing Anthony Joshua to be very aware and to use up more energy. And then we have round 11, and this is where Usyk starts throwing punches in bunches. So round 11, that's when you're very tired, that's the championship rounds. And then Usyk just steps it up. And again, and this is the key to Usyk's success, or part of the key to his success, he's maintaining the feinting, he's maintaining the head movement, and he's maintaining the foot movement. He is not slowing down. And then in round 12, it's like he lands a double jab with the right, jab, straight left, and then I think it's like a straight right. And then he follows it, I think, with another jab and straight right. And again, this is causing Anthony Joshua loads of problems. And then I think in the last half minute, he throws a flurry, and with this combination of punches, he almost stops Anthony Joshua. So this was like the emphatic arrival to the heavyweight scene where Usyk has become heavyweight champion. And following that is the rematch with Anthony Joshua. Now, again, we've got to give Anthony Joshua his flowers. Very good champion, two-time champion. And in the rematch, he actually came better. He changed his training team, so he changed it. And I'd say there's three things he did better. Number one, his hand placement was better. He was catching the left from Usyk. Number two, he threw more combinations. And number three, he invested more in the body. He really invested in the body. So let's go to round 9. So again, I watched some of this fight again, and again, he's catching the left with that right hand. So Anthony Joshua's catching the left. He's making adjustments. And then he's throwing really good combinations. He's really getting in a short left hook. It reminds me of that short left hook of how Evander used to throw his left hook. And then he's ripping in this like uppercut, and then he's going to the body. So he's really doing well. He's unleashing these short punches. And it looks like he's hurting Usyk. So there's two things happening. It looks like he's hurting Usyk. So he's having an effect on Usyk. And Anthony Joshua is gaining momentum, is becoming more confident. And at this point, if you pause the fight at this point, it looks like Anthony Joshua is going to take over. Now, this is the question of someone's character. How mentally strong is someone? Can they overcome adversity? It's a great question for any champion. And in round 10, Usyk then, he does something different. He starts to loop his punches. And I believe this is to create a variation in the attack. So he starts looping his punches, and then he shortens his punches. So by looping his punches and then shortening them, that creates the angle for him to land those punches. And then again, the head movement, a foot movement is still there. So it's still a hard target to hit. But then he starts landing combinations. And then this is where I feel Usyk goes into like the Matrix mode. This is similar to like when Bivol won his rematch with Beterbiev. He just went into the Matrix mode. Beterbiev looked like he was starting to take over in the rematch, and then Bivol just left Earth, metaphorically speaking. And I felt like that's what Usyk did. He just, it looked like Anthony Joshua was taking over, and then Usyk was like on level 5, and then he just went to level 6, level 7, level 8, level 9, and then he just totally took over. And I think that was a testament to Usyk's, not just to Usyk's technical ability, but also to his mental strength and his ability to come back from adversity. So that was a very impressive fight. Both fights were impressive. The first fight, which was competitive but a dominant performance, but the second fight, which was more competitive due to Anthony Joshua's adaptations. And then again, because he went into Matrix mode, again, he took over with a dominant performance at the end, but it was a very competitive fight. Both of those fights, I think, showed various things. Usyk can take a punch. Usyk has great foot movement, great head movement, even with the added weight of being a heavyweight. Great speed, great precision. He can punch with enough authority to get your attention. And at heavyweight, at the elite level, he can still solve those puzzles. Anthony Joshua presented a difficult puzzle in the first fight and an even more difficult puzzle in the second fight, and he solved both of them, which then led on to the Tyson Fury fight. And to me, this was the ultimate test, because this was a fighter who had great boxing intelligence in Tyson Fury, which was illustrated in the win over Klitschko. Remember, Klitschko had dominated for like 9 or 10 years. He dominated the heavyweight division. Yeah, Tyson Fury went to I believe it was his backyard, and he won. He won a decision. It was a technical fight. It wasn't like a brutal fight, but still he was able to deal with the jab. Klitschko had this really good left hook, which I believe he nurtured under the great Emmanuel Stewart. He was able to nullify that short left hook, nullify the jab, stop him from throwing and or landing right hands. And he was really able it was just a phenomenal performance by Tyson Fury, but it was a technical performance, very good technical performance. And then he had some troubles, and then he came back to fight who at the time, Deontay Wilder, is seen as washed up now, but at the time Deontay Wilder was feared. He was seen as the hardest puncher since George Foreman or since Ernie Shavers. both George Foreman and Ernie Shavers were phenomenal punchers. And he was seen as the hardest puncher in today's heavyweights, and maybe the hardest puncher of all time. And in that first fight, he had the controversial draw, and in the rematch, he absolutely dominated Deontay Wilder. And then in the third fight, they had a competitive match, but ultimately Tyson Fury came up on top. So Tyson Fury at that time was, a great fighter, and he was a big heavyweight. That makes it stylistically potentially very difficult for Usyk. He has the big reach, but more importantly, Tyson Fury has great boxing intelligence. Klitschko was an intelligent fighter. He broke opponents down, and Tyson Fury broke Klitschko down stylistically. So this was always going to be a difficult fight. And in round 6, Tyson Fury starts to land some great punches. I believe this is where he landed that. He did that double feint and then the right uppercut. And then I believe he did the left hook to the head and right hook to the body. And he really hurt Usyk. And at that time, if you pause the fight at that time, a lot of people believed that Tyson Fury was going to take over and maybe stop Usyk. But Usyk came back. And in round 9, what was significant was that Usyk was taking control of the ring. The same way of like when Evander Holyfield fought Mike Tyson, he took control of the ring. Usyk took control of the ring. And with the feints, he made Tyson Fury work hard in every round, which just slightly slowed down the reflexes. And this allowed for the left hand counter opportunity in round 9, which basically turned the tide of the fight. It completely turned the tide of the fight. And when he landed that left hand counter, Tyson Fury, let's be honest, was nearly knocked out, and salute to him, because he showed a lot of character to be able to come through round 9. He showed that he had a championship heart. And again, Usyk, by winning that fight, showed that he could solve puzzles. He showed that he has an elite boxing intelligence against a great fighter. And then we had the rematch with Tyson Fury. And again, that was a different type of fight. I feel like the first fight was a brutal fight. Like I said, Tyson Fury was very aggressive in the first fight. Even though he was using a lot of movement, in the middle rounds, he was very aggressive. And he looked like he was causing a lot of damage, particularly with the uppercut to the head and particularly with the work to the body, particularly the right to the body. But the second fight, I feel, was brutal in parts, but it was a very technical fight. But again, Usyk solved that puzzle, and let's be honest, they were both competitive fights. You've got to give credit to Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is a very credible and a great champion. But I think these fights kind of show why Usyk is elite level. And of course, you had the other fight. You had the fight with Derek Chisora, which I thought was a close fight. And I think Derek Chisora really surprised Usyk. I think he surprised him with his reflexes, his speed. I think Derek Chisora came in very good shape for that fight. I think when he switched southpaw, I think he wasn't expecting that. And I think the accuracy of the overhand rights, obviously you expect Derek Chisora to be aggressive, but the effective aggressive and his ability to, use his footwork to close the distance was really impressive. And that was a very challenging fight. But again, Usyk overcame that. And then you had the Daniel Dubois fights, which again, Daniel Dubois known for a very powerful jab. Again, he knocked out Anthony Joshua. He stopped Jarrell Miller, who is a very, very dangerous opponent. He stopped Filip Hrgović, who a lot of people were touting as being, potentially the next champion. A lot of people were very interested in the potential of Filip Hrgović. So again, he fought Daniel Dubois the first time. He solved the puzzle, and the second time, when Daniel Dubois was seen as a more mature and now a champion with more to offer, he beat him emphatically, absolutely emphatically. And actually, when I was analysing that fight, and when I saw that he'd put on weight, when I saw that Usyk had put on weight, I thought that would be detrimental to his performance, or potentially detrimental to his performance. But actually it enhanced his performance because it meant that he was punching heavier and it didn't compromise his foot speed, his punching speed, and he was able to put in it was an intimidating performance because it was a performance of not someone who's trying to outbox you. It was a performance of someone who's looking for the knockout. And it'd be interesting to see going forward, is Usyk going to adopt, was the Daniel Dubois mentality for the rematch, was that simply for that fight, or is he going to bring that into the next stages? So it's interesting when we talk about, is Usyk the greatest of all time? Obviously that's subjective, it's hard to answer those questions, but what we can speculate. How would Usyk have done against certain great fighters? How would he have done against Lennox Lewis? Lennox Lewis, that would have been a hard fight. Lennox Lewis has a great jab. There's actual rumours that Lennox doesn't like fighting southpaws, so that's one thing that goes into Usyk's favour. But Lennox Lewis really knows how to use his size, so that would be a difficult fight. I think Larry Holmes would be a difficult fight. The variable there is I'm not aware of how Larry Holmes fares against southpaws. Larry Holmes, again, arguably has one of the greatest left jabs in the history of boxing. I think the Riddick Bowe fight would be a good fight. I think that potentially could be a good fight. Particularly if Riddick Bowe could get it up close. People seem to forget that when the Riddick Bowe that fought Evander Holyfield the first time, I think that Riddick Bowe potentially would have beaten anyone that night. He was phenomenal. Then you got other people like Rocky Marciano. That's an interesting fight. Rocky Marciano, he's a rugged fighter. Has got a massive heart. And he's punching the arms to, break your arms and to wear you down. And he's got an engine. He's got great punch resilience. That would be an interesting matchup because they both have character. And I think Rocky Marciano's boxing IQ is higher than most people give him credit for. They just see him as just a tough guy. He is a tough guy. There's no doubt about that. But, there's a method to the madness. He gets low. He gives you a minimal target. That would be that potentially would be a great fight. Also against Evander Holyfield. That would have been a great fight. Again, you'd have to ask which Evander Holyfield is he fighting? Is he fighting the Evander Holyfield that fought Riddick Bowe the second time? Or is he fighting the Evander Holyfield that fought Mike Tyson? Or is he fighting the Evander Holyfield that fought Buster Douglas the first time? I think that Evander Holyfield would have been a very difficult fighter to beat. And of course, when we talk about how Usyk would do in other divisions, a lot of it is speculation. But I definitely feel that he's an elite fighter. He's proven that he's the best fighter in that generation. And you just kind of got to, take your hat off to him because as it stands right now, not only is he the undisputed heavyweight champion, based on his last performance, he's actually getting better. He's actually getting better, and that's a frightening prospect. So I think we have to say Usyk's a great fighter. Oh, here's another one. How would Usyk have fared against Joe Louis? That's another great matchup. It's always hard to compare because it's not only the fighter, it's the team. So, and if you take the fighters of yesterday, when I say the fighters of yesterday, the fighters of 30 years ago, heavyweights were smaller. So how are you measuring it? Are you taking the exact dimensions of that fighter and putting them in today? Or are you assuming that fighter would be bigger? Would they have the same trainer? Would they have the same outfit? Plus, which fighter are you taking? For example, Muhammad Ali. The Muhammad Ali that fought Liston the first time and the second time and had the first reign as heavyweight champion, no one could touch that fighter. He was just impossible to touch. His reflexes were incredible. But that Muhammad Ali versus the Muhammad Ali that fought Joe Frazier in the first, second, and third fight, that's a different Muhammad Ali. The Muhammad Ali that fought George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle is different to the Muhammad Ali that beat Sonny Liston. So it really depends on the errors, of when you fight. So, for example, if you the Evander Holyfield that fought Lennox Lewis is different to the Evander Holyfield that fought Buster Douglas, is different to the Evander Holyfield that fought Riddick Bowe the second time. So it depends which fighter are you getting, because that, I think, can determine the outcome. But definitely Usyk would be competitive, I think, in any generation. And you have to put him up there. You have to put him up there because he's been so dominant, and thus far he has solved every puzzle that has been put in front of him.